Hello, this is Alex, the Perception Trainer, author of The Perception Diet, and today I'm coming to you with a video request that I got this week, and I thought it was really, really important what this person brought up and what they asked, and I actually think that it applies to pretty much everyone, no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in life. This topic, this idea, so basically what she asked was this feeling of feeling like you're behind in life. Like where you are is behind where you should be, that you haven't lived up to your expectation, that you're missing something, you're lacking something, you're not where you should be. And I'm just gonna actually read the direct kind of question that she asked, because I feel like it really illustrates exactly what we want to talk about today with the feeling of being behind, and then I'll get into what I have to say about it, okay? So she said, would you please make a video on constantly feeling like you're behind? And I just said, okay, can you kind of clarify for me a little bit where you're coming from? And I asked her a couple of clarifying questions, and this is what she replied with, okay? She said, I think for me, my entire life, I had everything scheduled and expectation as to when things were meant to happen in my life. I graduated, I expected to get a job earning 6 figures, that didn't happen. I expected to find someone to marry and have children with by the time I was 30, that didn't happen. I expected to be able to afford a home by 30, that didn't happen. From your videos, I do accept that everything in my path is exactly as it's supposed to be, but deep down I have this deep foundational belief that I missed the train and am still waiting on the platform. I look back on relationships that I didn't pursue and wonder what it would be like if I had given them a shot. And then she goes on to say, have you ever seen the film Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow? I sometimes wonder what impact some of the decisions I have made on the person I am today. Perhaps I could be doing better and in a better place. I guess a lot of this is the expectations society, and by society I mean my mother, have placed on me and people in general. I go to university, you go to university, you graduate, you get a house, you get married, you have kids, then you retire, and then you die, and that's what we're taught, right? And yes, okay. So there's kind of a lot to unpack there, and like before I even get started, like obviously this question came in the context of, like, you know, someone in their mid-30s who's just getting out into the workforce, and you know, the relationship status isn't happening, the work status isn't happening, the financial status isn't happening, the having the kids isn't happening. But I don't think that this is exclusive to people who are kind of in the younger generation. I feel like this feeling that we're behind and we should be somewhere else is completely felt by everyone. I think people in their 50s and 60s and 70s feel like they're also not where they should be, or that life kind of passed them by in a way, or that they should be, you know, in a different place than they're at. Maybe it's a little bit less external sometimes with older generations, but maybe not even that. But, you know, even on the inside, like I feel like I should be more spiritually advanced at this point. I should be more kind, I should be more understanding, I should be more integrated, I should, right? This feeling that we are not where we should be. I believe it goes deep and it runs deep, and that pretty much everyone at most stages of life are feeling this. And so the first thing to consider, all right, is that absolutely society has fed us this idea that life is supposed to go in this way. And I think something to just address here right off the bat is, like, especially for the younger generation, everyone who's in their 20s, 30s right now, that world, right, of the go to school, get your degree, get married, get a job, get a house, get a car, retire. That world did used to exist. Like your parents and your grandparents had that, right? The post-war generations it was all about security, and it was all about right, finding that stable job, that stable relationship, that stable family life, those stable family values, which, I mean, a little bit I think was government propaganda, and we can go into that in another video. But right, that world did exist. You could go to university, get a job, climb the corporate ladder for the rest of your life, you know, have incremental raises, afford a house by the time you were 20 or 30, have kids, do all that stuff. And that was how the world worked. But now the world doesn't work that way anymore. So this is something we need to kind of accept as the younger generation, that the world that we've been handed is not the one that was lived in by the people that are handing it to us. okay? And that is something to majorly take into account when you start to evaluate yourself on where you should be in life, okay? So we know that there are tons and tons and tons of university graduates out there who cannot get a job to save their life, who are working at a coffee shop, right? We know that there are tons and tons of baby boomers who are refusing to retire and refusing to make room for the younger generation. We know that these jobs are going away because technology is taking over, and a lot of the jobs that used to be a stable job or a stable thing that you would have for the rest of your life are becoming obsolete because of technological advances. And we know that, it's just, the world is a different place now, right? And I think in a lot of ways, this idea that you're going to go to university and that's going to guarantee you a job, right now in our world, that's kind of like walking off a plank. It's not really how it works anymore. And we have to accept that, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to say, like, your parents and your moms and your dads or your grandparents who think that you should be able to go out and do that are not wrong in their thinking, because for them it was like that, right? They're not really projecting something onto you that's completely out of left field, because like I say, the world really did work like that for them, but it doesn't work like that anymore. We know this, right? There are, at this point, like, we can see that the opportunities for you to kind of do anything that you want to do exist, but we are living in the Wild West here, right? That pretty much, if we look out, we can see that people are making a living doing everything and anything, right? Like, I have a friend who literally is obsessed with durian fruit and has made her entire career out of that, and she doesn't have a university degree, I don't think. Maybe she does, but she didn't get her university degree in durian. You know what I mean? She pursued a passion, and she made it on her own. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is what we're being called to right now. So this is the first thing that I kind of want you to really consider when you're thinking where I should be, is that in the past, it was all about security, right? It was all about that stability, but we can look at that, and not everyone, but a lot of the people in those generations, in our parents' generations, in the 50s and 60s people right now, they didn't love what they were doing. They didn't do it because they were passionate. They didn't do it because it meant something to them. They didn't do it because they wanted to make the world a better place. And I'm not saying everyone. There were definitely baby boomers and the great generation people who did amazing things and really did go for their passion and really did make a positive impact on the world. But the majority of people, and where this mindset comes from of just university, job, house, kids, retire, came from, was security, right? And we're being asked to evolve out of that. We're being asked to do something that means something to us, and to really figure out who we are, right? To really figure out who we are, and then go make a life out of that. So what I'm gonna say is, I believe that if you're one of these people who's truly taking on the task of figuring out who you are and really taking the time to explore things, yes, your path is not going to look like this linear timeline of like perfect following a path, because you're not following a path, right? You're not following a treaded path. You're following you're following your own thing. You're following something that you're making up. And so that's going to look like, you might have 10 years of working retail while you read books and you take seminars and you take classes and you pursue things, right, in your life, and you travel and you do all these things, and all of this is going to eventually lead to you doing what you're here to do. But if you don't take this time to explore who you are and explore your values and explore your passions and explore what really matters to you, those jobs that you can go out and get and just work for the rest of your life for a paycheck and a pension are disappearing, right? And so, like I say, I just think we really live in a different world right now, where we have the opportunity, but also the challenge of having to figure out who and what we are before we step into a career, because the marketplace is starting to demand people who are passionate, people who are wanting to make this world a better place, the consumers of our generation, especially the millennial generation, if that's a thing you want to define us by, is we want conscious companies. We want things. We don't want to go to corporations. We don't want to feed into that whole cycle. And so if we're expecting ourselves to be able to benefit from that, as in like work for those companies or whatever, but not, you see what I'm saying? But not support them, we don't want that life. Well, right? We're asking for a different world. We're asking for a different world. We're asking for the world to operate in a different way. And that is going to require that we operate in a different way, right? And so what I want you to consider is that, yeah, I think for this generation, we have, especially in the West, especially if you're someone watching these videos, you have privilege, right? You are not someone who can't go and get a job at a coffee shop to pay your rent and pay your food while you figure out what it is that you feel you're here to do, right? You have resources, you have time, you don't have to go out and do the security thing. And so that might look like you're wasting time right now. That might look like you're not making headway. That might look like you're, like I say, working your retail job or doing whatever that doesn't look meaningful. But you're putting in the work, if you are putting in the work to discover who you are and discover what you're passionate about. And I do believe that that will lead you somewhere, okay? And then the second thing is, like, obviously the economy has changed so much, right? The idea of a person being able to go out and afford a house at 30 right now is just ridiculous, right? We're putting these expectations on ourselves of a time that no longer exists. We haven't adjusted to the fact that things have changed. And we really need to adjust to the fact that things have changed, okay? So adjust to the fact that things have changed. Adjust to the idea that you figuring out your own path is gonna take longer than just taking the treaded path of the corporate ladder, get a wife, get a house, right? That life, if that's not what you want, then you're not gonna have that, right? You're not gonna have that stability, you're not gonna have that security, you're not gonna have that linear path where you can explain to your mother, this is what I'm doing, because you're doing something totally different. So with this, I wanna recommend a book called Finding Your Way in a Wild New World by Martha Beck, and she really does a good job of talking about this. That the economy has changed, the marketplace has changed, the workforce has changed, the world has changed. This security of just do the logical steps, it doesn't exist anymore. And she gives really, really great tools in there for helping you navigate your way through what's going on right now. So the third thing that I want you to consider is, what do you value, right? In this time, with the shifts that are happening, with the world that doesn't exist anymore and the world that is starting to form, it's gonna be all about people doing their passion. It's going to be all about people knowing who they are and wanting to make an impact on this world, in this world, and doing so, right? And you have to know yourself in order to do that. You're going to have to know yourself in order to be a part of this next wave of people where we're asking for this change, but we got to be it, right? We have to be that inside ourselves. We have to discern what is really valuable to me, what is really valuable in my definition of valuable, right? I'm going to stop being a puppet to the whole consumerism, this is what I'm supposed to value stuff, right? Because again, like, I would even ask you, for some people out there, do you really want to have kids? Do you really want to have the house? Is that actually something that you value? Or is that something you're being told to value? Do you really want the car? Do you really want all the fancy clothes and the newest iPhones and the newest car, and like to be able to go in a club and party on a Friday night and have all of these things, like all of this just kind of consumerism stuff? Is that really important to you? Or do you just think that that's an expectation of what you should be because culture is telling you that? And if that's an expectation of what you should do because culture is telling you that, you're never going to feel fulfilled doing that. And you're never going to feel good enough, and you're never going to feel like you're where you're supposed to be, because that's the design of that system, right? The consumerism cycle is designed to keep you feeling like you're behind and you're not doing what you should be doing and you don't have enough and you're not enough, because that makes you a good consumer, right? So you got to think critically about this. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 20 or if you're 70. If you're feeling like you don't have what you should have, right? And it's materialistic what you're looking at, question that, right? Is that really your values talking? Or is that the consumerism cycle that's keeping you convinced that you're not good enough because you don't have the latest greatest thing, or this thing that, right, this ever elusive goal of fame and popularity and having the amount of stuff, right? Because that's the other, so, right, think about that. And then the fourth thing is to really consider, where would you be if you, like in your mind, very specifically, if you were where you thought you should be, right? So again, like this person in the email said, I should have a 6-figure income career with a husband and kids and a house, and I don't have any of that. So if you have like a specific goal like that, again, look at that. Is that really your values? Is that really what you want? Is that really what's important to you? Or are those things that you're thinking you should have because that's what would make you a meaningful person, or that's what would make you good, or that's what would make you responsible? Is that really what you're passionate about? Is that really what you care about? Is that really what is meaningful to you, right? And from there to say, is that something that's meaningful to the world? Because that's where we're moving, right? We're moving in this direction where what we're here to do and what fills us and what serves us is going to be something that is service to the whole, right? It's no longer about just get what I can get. We don't like that method. We don't like that system, right? Especially as millennials, we don't like the capitalist dog eat dog, I'm going to take you down, every man for himself, everyone getting screwed over, corporate ladder situation. We don't like that. But the thing is, if we don't like that, we have to be different, right? We have to take the responsibility inside of ourselves and say, we're not going to play that game, and we're not going to do that, and I'm not going to just be out for getting for myself, right? Because if you're just focused on how do I get my needs met, you're never going to feel fulfilled. I really believe that. If you start to focus on what am I passionate about and what am I here to give and what am I here to do and what lights me up inside, do I value beauty? Do I value art? Do I value creativity? Do I value technology? Do I value all of these things? And where can I be of service, right? What can I offer there in a way that kind of lights me up? That's more the direction you want to head, right? And then the car and the house and all of these other things that you think you should have, you're either going to realize that you don't really want them, you never really needed them, that's not, you were thinking that would fulfill you when really that had nothing to do with it, right? And what you really want is fulfillment, right? This feeling that you're not where you should be, I believe is really rooted in this there's an understanding within you that you want to do something greater, that you want to contribute, that you want to be living your purpose, and you want to know yourself, and you want to be a part of this unit of people who are moving forward in a way that are saying we're going to build the new world. We're not going to go on that beaten old corporate ladder, all this stuff by the time you're 30 track. And if you're 50 and 60 or 70 and you're feeling like this, same thing. It's never too late to discover what really matters to you and to start doing that in the world. It's never too late to start to adjust your value system to something that's actually valuable to you, right? And then in turn will be valuable to the whole. And I think that that's really what this boils down to, is that we need to start to critically think about these things. Why do we think we need to be having these things, right? Is this security life really what we want? Or really necessary, or really serving us or the whole? Or is it just coming from that fear-based mentality that was what was built after the war, which is what happened. That's where that world came from, right? It was based on all this fear, that there was all this scarcity, and we just wanted to create security. And I don't think it worked out very well for us, okay? Most of the people in those generations who did that life aren't happy and aren't satisfied. They're having midlife crises. They're feeling unfulfilled in their lives. They did the thing that they were supposed to do, and they don't feel good either. So that should be a clue, right? Go in, figure out who you are, figure out what you want, and be willing to take the random journey that no one else has taken to figure out what you're here to do, what you're here to contribute, and what you're here to live, and what your path is supposed to look like, and let go of all the values that don't have anything to do with you, right? Don't be a part of the corporate wheel. Don't be a part of the consumerism cycle. Figure yourself out. All right, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. You haven't made a mistake, okay? Figure yourself out. That's what this is. This is a call to go in and figure out what your values are, what your passions are, what you have to offer. Okay? So like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Join us on Patreon. And I love your requests, and I'll see you in the next video.